Hi guys, today I'm going to be making a tutorial for a white bolognese sauce, also known as a Ragú Bianco. This is going to be very similar to a traditional tomato-based bolognese, but instead of basically putting tomatoes, we're just going to let it simmer in the milk and the wine, and then we'll finish with heavy cream and Parmesan. First, I'm going to dice up one whole white onion. I usually would use yellow onion, but I have white onions in the house today, so that's what's going in the sauce. Now that I have a good enough excuse to cry, the onions are going to go in by themselves with some olive oil before the rest of the vegetables. I have this on low-medium heat while I chop the rest of the stuff. For this batch, I am going to be using 3 pounds of meat, so I'm going to do 3 stalks of celery, and then maybe I'll do a little bit more, depending on how it looks like when it's done. Okay, now this is the amount of carrot that I'm going to be adding into 3 whole pounds of meat for this sauce. So bolognese, or Ragú Bianco, whatever you want to call it, is not going to be as highly vegetable-y as like a marinara sauce or something. It's a meat-based sauce. Okay, I'm finally done chopping up my veg. The celery are a lot larger than the carrot just because I got lazy with my chopping. I normally like to dice them very, very fine, as you can see here. The smaller you do it, the more uniform your product is going to come out, and I think it looks better presentation-wise as well. But that just depends on your goals for the evening and for the dinner. If you just want to be quick and rustic, you can go ahead and do that. Just cut them up easy. If you want to make it very impressive, you can do a really, really fine micro dice. That will look really pretty. Or you can just grate it. I don't like grating things. I think it's more work than chopping them up, but you will probably not agree with me on that. Into the Dutch oven they go. Oops. And then always salt as you go, no matter what you're making, but especially in sauces. If you don't salt as you go and you just salt towards the end, you're gonna end up with a sauce that is bland and too salty at the same time. You have to allow the vegetables to cook in some salt, so that way they have flavor. Just don't salt too much, because then you might over salt your entire dish. But it's a learning curve, okay? I'm gonna allow these to saute for about 10 minutes, and then I'll add in my meats. Okay, as you were able to see, the meat was not, the vegetables were not entirely softened, the carrot and the celery, but that doesn't matter because we're gonna obviously keep that in while we brown the meat, and then this whole thing's gonna simmer for 3 hours. So everything's gonna get soft. Now, okay, 2 1/4 pounds of ground beef, 90-10 leanness, and then 1.5 pound of ground pork. I don't know what the leanness on the ground pork is. That was the only type of ground pork that they have at the grocery store. Now I'm gonna add this in and brown everything, so that way there's not any more pink left. And now chop all your, well, not chop, but mash up all your meat so it can be very fine and very mixed in. And obviously salt this step as well. Now, while my meat is browning, I'm gonna add some seasonings. Here I have the remaining of my red pepper flake that I like to pre-grind. I have no more red pepper flake, so this is all I'm gonna be able to add to that large pot, but I'm gonna add this whole thing. Then I'm gonna grate some fresh nutmeg. If you can get fresh whole nutmeg to grate, do this. If not, you can use pre-ground. If you're gonna be using already ground spices, you might have to add a little bit more. I'm gonna be adding about a whole teaspoon of this, maybe about 1.5 teaspoons. And then, in traditional Italian cooking, onion and garlic do not go in the same dishes. But, God bless the USA, I'm gonna add some garlic. And to keep it very American, I'm gonna use garlic because I don't have any fresh on hand, and it really doesn't matter, okay? I'm going to do some fresh cracked black pepper. It's really, really hard to mix this because it's so full without spilling everywhere. And there's not even liquid in it yet. This whole Dutch oven is going to be filled. So if you don't have a large Dutch oven, cut the recipe by half. I'm like burning myself, so I'm going to do this off camera. Okay, now that all the meat is brown, I'm gonna add an entire bottle of white cooking wine. This isn't a full-size bottle. Obviously, this is 13 ounces. The only reason I'm using shitty-ass cooking wine instead of a normal white wine is because this one, they will deliver to your house. And I'm too lazy to go to the store. So, but anyway, I've done this before with shitty-ass wines, and it tastes literally fine. So, as you can see, whole bottle goes in. We're gonna reduce this alcohol by half. That wasn't that much, so if you have a real bottle of wine, I would add like 3 cups of it or the whole bottle. You know, cooking is really easy, so you don't have to overthink it, and that will make your food taste the best. If you are scared of messing things up, you will mess them up. That always happens to me. If I get nervous, then I fuck up the food. Whereas if you just go downstairs in front of your stove and you mildly black out and forget what's happening around you, the food always turns out so fucking good. And that's why when people ask me like, Haley, how do you make this? I just draw a blank. Because I actually don't know. I can't remember what happened. So that's why I wanted to start making YouTube videos so I can watch myself on camera to see what it is that I'm doing. Okay, I let it reduce a little, and now I'm gonna add about a cup or a cup and a half or 2 cups, I don't know, of some chicken broth. And then I'm gonna cover it and let it simmer on low heat, the lowest heat, for about an hour. That was about a cup and a half, I would say. I just wanted it enough so that way it covers all of the meat. And you might be thinking, like, how are you gonna cook this ground beef and ground pork for so long? It's gonna get really dry or like tough or whatever. But no, the secret to this sauce, and a lot of meat-based recipes actually, is you just cook it down for so long that the meat just completely falls apart, and that's gonna turn it into a sauce. And it helps that we're cooking it in a bunch of tenderizers. Right now it's the alcohol, and later it will be milk. Here she is. I'm gonna cover it and let it simmer on low for 1 whole hour, if not about an hour and a half, while I go do my homework. Okay, my sauce has been simmering for about an hour and 20 minutes. Now is a really good time to take a bite and test for the saltiness. But now that that's been going for a while, I'm gonna add 2 cups of milk, maybe even a little bit more, and then I'm gonna add my herbs. Okay, 2 cups of milk looks like it's gonna be good for now, because I'm also gonna finish this with heavy cream once it's finished cooking and everything kind of reduces. Okay, so here is what the sauce looks like now that I just added the milk. And I'm gonna reduce the amount of liquid in this by less than half, but you'll see. For herbs, I'm keeping it really simple. I'm gonna do 2 bay leaves and a bunch of thyme, like a bunch. Okay, 2 bay leaves go in. Now I have fresh thyme. I'm gonna put, okay, here's a little bushel of thyme that I tied a thyme sprig around to keep it together, and I'm just gonna place this just on top and kind of push it. Beautiful this looks already. And yes, it is oily. The sauce is gonna be very rich and it's gonna be kind of oily. But at the end, when we add the cream and we add the Parmesan, it'll emulsify a lot better. Excuse me. Okay, now I'm gonna cover this and leave the lid slightly ajar by about 1 inch or so that way some of the water can reduce, but not all of it has to. We're not gonna be too worried about that right now. I'm gonna let this simmer for 2 hours on very low heat. Okay, it's been simmering now with the milk for 2 whole hours. So in total, this has simmered for over 3 hours, so it's ready. I'm gonna finish it with heavy cream and Parmesan. Also, I removed the herb bundles off camera, and here's some heavy whipping cream. I think I'll add a splash more. The slower you add the cheese, the better it will immerse into the sauce. So I just add a little at a time. Okay, so this is what the sauce looks like as it is basically done. I just turned off the heat, and it will thicken a little bit more as it cools down, obviously. I added about half a block of the Parmesan wedge, and I'll add more parm on top. I've decided to put this on some trompetti pasta.